After studying and investigating the case, they arrived at three possibilities. First, that these thieves have a mastermind. Like, for example, a gang leader or a secret person obsessed with artworks and planning to keep these items for himself. Second, that they might be in contact with art traffickers outside the country. Immediately after committing the theft of these valuable works, the perpetrators swiftly transported them directly to the black market for illicit sale. Third, they intended to release them for a large sum from the museum or the insurance company, for example, but then the investigators immediately discovered that the museum does not have insurance on the artworks it possesses. Because, of course, the insurance company would certainly require astronomical amounts when insuring artworks at these exorbitant prices. For this reason, they find themselves with no alternative solution but to present a generous $1 million reward to anyone who can provide information regarding the stolen paintings. Once the news regarding the substantial reward began to circulate widely and gained significant attention, an overwhelming number of telephone calls started to inundate the police stations continuously. One of these calls was from someone who said he knows a person who is connected with major gangs in Boston and resembles closely the sketches that were published, and he suspects that they are the ones who robbed the museum. Especially since they have been missing since the day the crime occurred and no one knows anything about them. Of course, when the investigators heard this, they felt that they were genuine. They were on the verge of making their first breakthrough, obtained the names of these two individuals, and began searching for them. However, a few days after the search began, they eventually discovered one of the victims tightly wrapped inside a car trunk, his head securely covered with a plastic bag, and he was tragically killed by a single stab wound to his chest. The authorities were unable to determine the identity of the individual who had killed him, and several days later they discovered that the second person had also died, but this time from a heart attack in a hospital. At that time, suspicions arose that they were indeed the ones who robbed the museum for the benefit of a third person, to whom the paintings were handed over. Their deaths were to ensure that none of them would confess or even to prevent them from exposing their theft plans. But anyway, all of these were merely assumptions with no evidence. Therefore, the investigators decided to exclude the entire case and start the search anew. Subscribe to the channel. 7 full years have passed since the event without us finding out who stole, or even the items that were stolen themselves. This caused the museum to increase the reward to $5 million, and the event that occurred in the museum became more widespread among people. It was a great opportunity for the press to talk about the museum, and among the journalists who took advantage of the opportunity was Tom Mashberg. Due to his great interest in the incident, Tom hoped that he could solve the case himself and catch the criminals during his investigation. He heard about a man passionate about stealing artworks named Miles Connor. His entire crime was carried out in ways very similar to how the Card Museum was being robbed. And most of his crimes also took place